G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, I thought we might not talk about a specific vehicle, or specific type of vehicle, or specific game mechanic, or something wrong with the game itself, or rather the way a match plays out. I thought we might discuss something a little bit different. Let's talk about repair costs. And honestly, it's been a little bit crazy. Some repair costs are increasing by a pretty substantial margin. I think 44k for the G56 stock, which makes it more expensive than the B29, which is already extremely expensive. These are some pretty massive changes, to be honest. And honestly, there's a way around it. There really is just an absolute way around it, and I don't see why Gaijin needs to do this. So, let's think about repair costs, and as someone who likes to, consider both sides of the equation before we make up our mind, I'd like to talk about the pros of a repair cost. You might think, well, what? No, there are no pros because you're just losing money, it's just a cash grab for Gaijin, but at the same time it does a couple of things that you need to consider. So, first of all, and I think most importantly, it prevents you from throwing your plane away. If you have some sort of reason to lose, instead of committing to a head-on or, throwing your plane into the dirt and paying the full repair cost, you can, make sure you play a little bit safer. You can play a bit more reasonably. A lot of the time, people tend to throw their planes away, and I can see why people are racking up constant negative bills in their repair cost, because they're just committing to head-ons or crashing into the ground or, turning and burning and losing all your energy, mowing the lawn in your P47. These are things that are completely avoidable. And obviously, repair costs are not the best thing in the world, but they do serve to stop people from throwing their planes away. They also stop things like bots, for example. There's no way that you can make a bot that in War Thunder is good enough to run at a Silver Lion profit. You would always be running one at a deficit because unless it's got some sort of crazy hack that's been, picked up by the new EAC, then there's not really a lot you're going to do. If there was no repair cost, for example, you could just go into a million matches and the bot would do that while you go to work. Kind of like a RuneScape bot, if you will. And as long as it doesn't break, that's an easy 200,000 RP when you're at work, or 100,000 RP when you're at work or school or whatever, and it stops things like that. And I never thought about that until Tech brought it up in a video, and I thought that was really interesting. But now, let's have a look at another positive that is supposed... Oh, I don't really think it's a positive. I think it's a bit neutral, to be honest. This is why Gaijin does their repair costs, and why they make them high. It is to supposedly make the plane more risky to take out. And so, only the best people will fly it out. Or fewer people will fly it out, rather. And this is a bit weird. If you were to reduce the number of these planes or tanks in battle, for example, let's take the Lorraine 40T. The Lorraine 40T is probably one of the best 7.3 tanks in the game, and it's simply because it has a very fast-firing gun, up to 6 shots, and then you have to, reload the ready rack or the clip, the drum mag. It also has insane mobility, and in some cases it can take more than one shot, especially with Heat FS all around that tier. APHE, not all the time, and obviously from the side, not all the time, and from the ammo rack, not all the time. But if you get shot in the turret, the autoloader mechanism is positioned in a way that it can reduce you to 2 crew, but not take out that third a lot of the time. Unless you hit like a really, really nice spot, it tends to get eaten up a bit. And the Lorraine 40T, as a result, is one of the strongest 7.3 tanks in the game, full stop. So why does it have an insane repair cost? It's to reduce the number of planes or tanks in the battle. I personally disagree with this. I don't think that's a real solution, because what it does is it makes the people that just want to play and aren't that really good take out their tank, they lose a lot of Silver Lions, and then they just never touch it anymore. And that's why you have a lack of, say, French tanks at top tier, because no one wants to play tanks, or no one wants to grind with tanks that have either a crappy matchmaking like the Subase and get matched with XM1s, or have to pay 20,000, maybe in some cases I've paid 50,000 Silver Lions for repair costs in French tanks because, I've died a couple of times. I think it was almost 60,000 as well. These numbers are huge. I mean, I made a profit because I know what I'm doing. I'm a very experienced tanker and I'm a very experienced pilot. But people who are just starting out and just grinding out the French tree don't stand a chance against these repair costs, even with a premium account. And I don't really think it's reasonable. On top of that, what you're going to constantly do is planes with high repair costs will be played out by the people that can afford it. That is, not the people that have paid for premium time. It's the people that can fly them well. Having this risky plane environment where you have a TAR 152 with a 25k repair cost means that people who will fly them out will be the ones that can afford that, meaning they either have an absolute metric shit ton of silver lines from earlier, or they're able to cover that repair cost with their kills. In this case, you will constantly get better and better players playing these vehicles, and this will drive the repair costs further and further up. Now, let's talk about another thing that repair costs do. Repair costs tend to throw people out of the market a lot, and I find that it's kind of sad. A lot of the time, you go around and, you see all these planes and these people that just don't have the money for these new jets or something like that. And honestly, it kind of makes me sad, because a lot of these people, they just want to grind out their stuff, and I've been there. I've been grinding out my jets for the first time and seeing all the struggle with silver lines. It happens when you get up to these high tiers, and once you get over it, you get back into silver line profit. But it is tough, especially if you are just making your way into the top echelons of the game. You want to be able to experience a lot of it, and it is hard, and I understand that, and I find that the repair costs for these tanks that you would otherwise grind with, for example, I would grind with the Lorraine 40T. It is I believe it's a rank 4 or 5. It's a decent tier to grind out stuff. Like, I've ground out the way I did it was I ground the FL10, and then I ground up to the Lorraine 40T. I used the 40T to grind to the Subassé, and I used the Subassé to grind the rest of the tree. And now I have the AMX 30 Super because of the content partner program. But otherwise, I probably wouldn't be grinding. It's actually incredible how grindy War Thunder can be, and this just adds to the frustration as well. A lot of people find that they get absolutely frustrated, and this drives people away. So you have people flying G56s that have 5-6 KDs, and you have the poor people at the bottom who will never get to fly it because they just can't afford the repair cost. I don't really see it as fair. It kind of hampers gameplay instead. And on top of this, I also feel like Gaijin use it as a balancing factor. They said that they don't use it to balance vehicles, but I don't really understand what they're talking about when they say that. Because if you want to, for example, I take this as a really good example, the TAR 152C and the TAR 152H. In my opinion, if you were to up tier them, they would be extremely shit. They would just be garbage. You'd have to face P80s all day, you'd be facing jets, you'd just be getting smashed, and it just would not be fun. It just, plain as simple, would not be fun. And so, they are left at 5.7 and given a very high repair cost because they have really good statistics. Now, in some cases, I think this is okay. For example, I think for the TAR 152 it is okay because it is a very strong plane, especially the TAR 152H, and I would prefer to have a high repair cost than to be constantly shit on every single time I play my TAR 152H because I'm facing P80s and other things that I just can't catch. They have to be the one to make the mistake and turn, and it's not fun. On the other hand, things like the ME264, I really don't think should have a high repair cost. I think it should have a very low repair cost and a high battle rating as a result, as a sort of trade-off, if you will. It'll be harder to get your kills, but when you do, you won't. When you do, it'll be rewarding, and when you don't die and you die, when you don't and you die, it will be less punishing. Oh boy, I apologize for that. I've got a massive bushfire nearby, and the smoke is absolutely kicking my butt. But it's not kicking my butt as much as repair costs, and honestly, it's just going to be a massive spiral up. Planes that that have no better matchmaking to go to, sure, 10.0 jets or 10.3 and 10.3 tanks, I can understand that. And I think that they should have a high repair cost to discourage people from constantly playing the highest tier, because they'll constantly be matched against 9.3s. And 9.3 versus 10.3, there's not really much of a comparison. It's pretty much die and cry in a corner, more or less. So I understand for planes or tanks or ships or whatever that can't be matched against tougher opponents, like the TAR 152C, the Phantom, for example, there is no tougher opponent for it. So a high repair cost is warranted. But for planes with a high repair cost, otherwise, just put them up a battle rating. Put them up a small battle rating, and you will be fine. I would much rather this than having high repair costs across the board. At this point in the game, Gaijin should be looking at satisfying its players. It has developed a lot of content. War Thunder has some of the most content of any video game that I've ever come across. And honestly, the next big step to make War Thunder a good, big, popular game is to satisfy its player base. And obviously this doesn't mean listening to the screechers and listening to the, vocal minority. It's about listening to the general feel of the player base. Are they overall satisfied with the game? Are they overall feeling good when they play War Thunder? Obviously, it's not always going to be positive because that's just how it works. But games like, for example, Rainbow Six, I will always bring up Rainbow Six because I believe it's a success story. It's just one of those games that they listened to the pro players, they listened to, and they tried to make the best of everything. They've reworked maps, they've reworked operators, they've reworked physics and bullet penetration, and in some cases sound, and you name it. And they've listened to their players, taken on the feedback, and they've made their game a massive success. It went from literally dying to one of the biggest esports out there because they listened to their player base. They made it popular. You see, a game can be good, but if it's not popular, what's the point in developing it? And so War Thunder needs to take that next step and start considering what its player base feels and then adjust itself to suit that the best. If you can get a player base that's happy, they're more likely to spend money. They're more likely to spend time playing the game. And obviously, you're not going to get 100% satisfied customers. You're going to get people that say, well, I can't play War Thunder today. I can't play War Thunder today because of the teams. They're garbage. I suck. Or I can't play because my plane crashed and I had packet loss. These are things that, there's not a whole lot you can do for these people. But I got Eastern Europe 4 or 5 times in a row at different battle ratings is kind of avoidable. I'm paying 50,000 Silver Lions and I'm constantly losing them because I just want to play my Lorraine 40T. Things like these are avoidable. And taking that next step for War Thunder is going to include reducing repair costs and perhaps increasing battle ratings to compensate. Bloody hell, chuck the Lorraine 40T at 7.7. It'll be fine there. It works as a 7.7 tank. It has almost 300mm of pen, which is almost the same as the M103, on a lighter chassis with a better reload and better mobility. There are things that you can use to work around. The Heinkel 177 doesn't need to have a high repair cost. It can have a low repair cost and it can be put at 5.7, I think it is 5.6, 6.0, 6.3. It will be fine because it has the performance to match it. The 264, 5.7, low repair cost. Easy, done, simple. These things are very manageable, and you'll also avoid having to use the algorithm again to force only the best players to play their vehicles. So, for me, I have, I believe, a 2 or a 3 KD in the TAR 152C, the TAR 152H. Yes, the TAR 152H. Now, I don't care about the repair cost because most of the time I will make that back because I'm a decent player. So, why would you force or tunnel vision or pigeonhole me and only me and the types of players that play the way I do or at the level that I do into playing this plane? Because the statistics will just get better and better. if the average KD was, say, 1.1 or 0.89 or something like that, then having a player that can sustain a 2 KD play this and start to pigeonhole people like that really, really isn't going to... It's going to inflate the statistics. It's going to make it artificially... It's going to artificially weigh it. And it's not good. I don't like the way this is headed. And I would really, really like to see just a little change or something from Gaijin to say that they're maybe redoing the algorithm or some sort of correspondence. Because over the last few months, especially over recently on social media, on Twitter, a lot of the content creators have been getting a lot of, not attention, but correspondence. They've been asking questions and the social media guy's been responding. That is perfect. I don't care if I get roasted because I made a mistake or something like that. I just appreciate the correspondence, and having more of this is better for the game and it's better for the player base because they know that Gaijin is not sitting up there in their ivory tower and making people, pay their repair costs and getting those golden eagles and counting his big coins at the top of the tower with his little cat. But it's just one of the things that I think should just adjust a little bit in War Thunder. Just adjust it, and it'll get better. Because this stuff really frustrates players, and it always has. And unless there is, a good reason for it, like the plane it shouldn't go up in battle rating because, it would get even more shafted. It is better for it to have a high repair cost than for it to have a higher battle rating. Then sure, I'm all for it. F4 Phantom, MiG-20, not really MiG-21, MiG-19 PT, Phantom FGR-2, Hunter F6. These planes that can't really see any better competition as such, there's no full up tiers for them. Sure, high repair cost, but everything else, not really.